This is the Next Up YouTube. In today's YouTube, I just want to talk about the Pixel 6 for a second. And in talking about what it feels like when it comes to the Pixel phones, it's like, especially with this one, it felt like it was finally there. We finally got the phone, at least hardware. When you look on paper, it just really felt like Google figured it out. And yet, as you look just around different tech spheres and tech spaces, and you see that, prominent YouTubers and other people are now switching from Pixel phones to other phones because of hardware issues and software issues. And it just have a number of people, I'm pretty sure, especially those on the outside, that is looking at this and going, man, what gives? We're talking about the guys behind the Android software that they can't figure it out. They can't seem to get it right yet again. They can't put out a phone where hardware and software just, feel like it meets together and provide the experience that customers are wanting. And what's going on with the customer service, as you're seeing that a number of people, when it comes to the Pixel, when they're trying to get a hold of Google, trying to get stuff solved, and it feels like that they are not really getting what they feel like they expected, especially from a customer service standpoint. And it gotta be frustrating. Now, if you on the outside, you're looking and you gotta be like, why are you guys still sticking around a Pixel? What makes this phone so attractive, where people just swear by it? Isn't even worth it, especially when you look on the opposite end, where you think about the iPhone, which is the phone that Google has been trying to compete with since its infancy. You see that it feels like they got it together, and for the most part they do, when it comes to putting both the hardware and the software together to provide the experience that is just seamless and everything works. And it feels like ever since Android has came onto the field or into the arena and been trying to really compete, those who have been fans of Google's software and Google's hardware, have been dying to find or get the phone that provides that experience that rivals that of the iPhone. And it feels like every year where we have gotten closer, it seems like it's farther away at times. Like we're almost there, but it's not. And when you look at the early bugs, especially with the Pixel 6 right now, whether it be bugs that are resulting in people, these are some critical bugs, by the way, where people are having a hard time staying connected, and to the point where they're seeing connection errors. And I have to admit, I have seen some connection errors. Now, I recently received an update. It's improved that, but it was to the point where the update that was supposed to have came in December, Google had to pull it because it was riddled with even more bugs. And it got to the point where people just like, you know what, this phone's unusable and I'm done. Right now, I'm done with it for a little bit and I want to move on. And let's talk about it for a second. Now for you on the outside, just looking in, you gotta be like, hey, what is this deal with Google? Like, why do you guys love a device where, when you think about where they are when it comes to their phones, it's slow to adopt some of the new hardware features. Especially when you look at what Samsung continues to do year after year, being some of the first to adopt some of the newest features and really cement its place as some would consider and still consider the king of Android. Providing just the bells and whistles that make the software and hardware be what we have always wanted that for Google to be. It seems like they're not afraid to take the risks. They go out there and, when it comes to being some of the first, whether you look at where we are now, where you have the ability with your phone where you can watch your YouTube in a small window while searching the web or going through your social media posts. Well, it was a feature that Samsung released on their phones 5 years before Google ever got a chance to even get into doing that. And you see that over and over again to the point where I can see many asking, why is Google still around with a Pixel? Why are fans still clamoring to them and not just going to Samsung? I mean, when you think about it, they truly are, at least on paper, looking like the best rival for those who are wanting an Android phone that competes with the iPhone. You get the hardware that is able to compete, and at times beat that of the iPhone, and the software, it is getting better. Like, it's to the point where even I have to admit, for me who have hated Samsung software for years, even decades, man, and I still have my Galaxy Fold, and lately it's been getting updates before my Pixel 6 have been getting updates. And it's like it's getting better. Like, one of the things I say that made the Pixel the phone for me was because with every update, the phone would get better and better and better, to the point where the phone actually felt like it was getting better with age, where Samsung phones in the past was doing the opposite, which each update or lack thereof, it felt like it was getting more sluggish and just almost harder to use. And yet, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not getting that anymore with my Samsung phone. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a reason why I still choose the Pixel over Samsung, but that is one of those preferences where I can see why it's getting harder and harder for other people to do so. Because it's like, are we going to finally get a Pixel phone or a Google phone that can really compete? And as the years continue to go, I gotta feel like for a number of people, they don't care anymore. It's like they've given up. It seems like it's a long way from the Nexus 1, where that was arguably the one phone where Google really did lead the pack in providing what the hardware and software experience for a Google phone could be, to the point where it guided other devices and manufacturers or manufacturers in their devices and software to where they needed to go to push Android in a direction that it could be at. But now, I mean, can you really think of another phone that, when you think about Android, when you think about Google and their phones, that really stands out that way? Yes, the Nexus 5 has been the fan favorite, but if you even look at that year, it wasn't the best Android or even Google Experience device, because that's the same year that Google put out their Google Play Experience devices. And when you look at hardware, you had the option to pick up a Samsung Galaxy S4, which had much better hardware specs than the Nexus 5. And you still had the same software experience as the Nexus 5, the updates that you got with the Nexus 5. If any phone would have been better, I would say that was it. But, at that time, for a lot of Android or Pixel fans, we chose at the time it was Nexus, but Nexus fans, we chose the price to be the guiding factor in us making that decision. Where, even though that phone was available, people wasn't ready to buy that. Mainly because you couldn't buy it through a carrier and get discounts and get these, different rates or a cheaper price to buy the phone. Where with the Google Play phone that you bought, you had to pay for it outright, out of pocket. And quite frankly, people wasn't ready to do so. They wasn't ready to pay the price for a Samsung Galaxy S phone, where they felt like, well, a lot of the things that made the Samsung phone a Samsung phone was stripped to make it more like, a more vanilla feeling of the phone. Something that a lot of Pixel fans, when we pick up or a Google phone, look for. And when I look back at that, I have to think, That is likely the reason why we're seeing the direction that we're seeing with these Google phones. Because back then, when given the option, given the choice to choose whether to go with the best hardware or go with price, well, the fans chose price. And I think we're starting to continue to see that that is the direction that Google's going to continue to go. That they're going to find every way to make sure the phone that they put out there meets a certain price point. And in order to do that, you got to find a way to cut corners to make that happen. So where do you cut corners? Well, you hope that you can cut corners in a way that no one notices, but that don't seem to be the case. It's just wherever Google seems to find a way to cut their corners, it's like right there out in the open and people can see it. And it's to the point where it's affecting some of the experiences. You know, on paper, the Pixel 6 Pro is one of the best or the best phone that we've seen out of a Google phone. I could say since its infancy, you know, or back since the Nexus 1, where hardware-wise, compared to what is out there, it feels like, well, it can compete. But then you take a closer look and you start to see, well, maybe not quite yet. Especially when you look at something that you would think is very important to make sure it works, the fingerprint scanner. You know, the thing that you got to use to get in your phone, you would think there would be everything put around make sure that works. And yet they chose to go with a older sensor, where instead of going with what is out now that you're seeing in some of your Samsung phones or some of your other manufacturers, they said, you know what, let's go with the older model, the one that, well, people would have issues with, and hope that our software can cover that up to where it won't get in the way. Now, if they kept the face unlock, that might have worked, you know, because as much as many will did not like the Pixel 4, 4 XL, the face unlock feature, hey, you gotta admit, it does work pretty well. And, you know, imagine if you had that on this phone. Even though you had a fingerprint sensor that was garbage, it could have made up for that, because if you had the ability to have your face be used as a way to unlock your phone, it would may have mitigated it. In fact, that was the way OnePlus got around them having issue with their fingerprint scanner when they released the OnePlus 6T a couple years ago. Because the OnePlus 6T is literally the exact same phone, if you think hardware-wise, that we kind of had with the Pixel 6 Pro on paper. Obviously, the difference being the processor, but mainly, if you think about on paper, just sit back and look, pretty much almost the same phone, and had some of the same issues with the fingerprint unlocking. But because you had a very fast face unlock, it made it to where it's like, okay, you can get around that. So I feel like a lot of the problems when it comes to Pixel phone is just the decision making. Whoever's making the decision to go about what they're going about and putting out these phones, it's like they're cutting in the wrong areas, or, you know, not being strategic in how they cut. You know, if you know you're going to make a certain spot a weakness, try to find a way to cover up the weakness, or allow that weakness to not be shown. You know, whether it be, again, a good example of that is what I said. Have a face unlock that made it where you don't have to rely on a fingerprint scanner that much. And yeah, you would still have that as a weakness, but you know what? If I don't have to use it that much, I'm not going to complain as much. So when I think about where we are, as you say, with the state of Google, I'm as a fan still choose a Google phone for the simple fact that I just prefer that software. Still do. I enjoy the call screening app. I love the ability of now having my phone be able to wait on hold. Their camera software is still pretty good. They still got ways to go with their video camera software. Like Apple has caught up very quick with them. Matter of fact, overtaking them now. So it's like they need to go back to the drawing board and to continue to work and think about where they took a step back and really push forward. But if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that I just feel like with Google, for every step forward they take, it feels like they take a step back in another area. And it's not that I'm giving up, but I can understand why a lot of people have given up hope and said, forget it, I'm moving on. Just for me, the reason why I have been unable to move on to Samsung as a overall device, or finally say, I'm done with the Pixel phones, is I prefer still a lot of Google's software when it comes to not just, like I said, this call screen app, but I enjoy just using Chrome browser for my browser. I enjoy the messaging app. I just prefer using just Google software. And a lot of times when you pick up a Samsung phone and you go to set it up, you have the duplicate Samsung apps, and it's like a lot of those apps you can't remove, and you gotta go through the process of making the Google app the default. And at times with certain updates, it goes back to the Samsung app as making the default. And after a while, it's like, man, I feel like I'm fighting this phone. It's like, instead of me being able to use the phone as I want it, as I intend to use it, I'm fighting to make it work the way I want it to work, or the way I want it to work, because I just don't want to use Samsung software. I don't want to rely on Samsung ecosystem. I just want Samsung's hardware. And it's like, if I could have the best of both worlds, where I can have a Samsung hardware with the Google software, back when we had the Google Play Edition phone, I think it will work. But at this point in the game, it'll never happen. It won't happen again, I don't think, because I feel like, where they both are at as far as trajectory, it's like they have no reason to help each other in terms of one just provide the overall hardware for the other. Where Google's trying to go with their experience, with the money they spent on trying to put out or put it in research and creating their own chips. It's like they made a decision. They're where they need to be, and I don't think they're going back. And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at where we are at when it comes to Pixel phones and where we could go, still got some ways to go. And as far as their customer service right now, it's hard to tell if this is a result of them being short-staffed like everyone else, because of being dealing with a lot of people working from home and not really looking to go back, or leaving corporations or leaving the companies and deciding to do their own thing. So they're so short-staffed where it's like, as a result, their customer service experience has suffered. Or if it really did just take a decline because the people that was in charge of it just stopped caring. We'll have to find out, and I think time will tell. And as with anything when it comes to tech, and the thing that makes it exciting is that the cream rises to the top, and it's only going to be so long where if you're a manufacturer or a company that's putting out subpar device or not meeting the experience of your customers, you'll be gone. We've seen that with HTC, where the once brilliant, quietly brilliant, is now gone, quietly gone. And I think a lot of people, no one miss them, because they've moved on, and they're just going to be a Jeopardy question. And the question has to be, will that be the case when it comes to Google phones? Are they going to become the next Jeopardy question? And will the king, Samsung, just be the ones continue on going forward and being a true representative hardware, software for what is Android, being the phone that is able to be the opposite, the competitor to the iPhone. Well, we'll continue to see. And for me, I, I kind of hope we do find a ground where, well, Google finally get their stuff together. Anyway, that was my thoughts. Being a Pixel fan, I thought I'll talk about why a lot of Pixel fans like myself are still continue to hold on hope and what draws us to this phone, even though when you look across the aisle, if you are to be honest, there's a better phone manufacturer and it's easier to obtain and provide a better overall experience for your money. But at the end of the day, we still hold on hope because we just know that we've seen some of what Google phones could be, and when they're on their game, software-wise, there's no other device out there that can beat it. It's the cleanest experience phone that you can enjoy. You don't have to worry about software getting in the way. You don't have to worry about it getting to the point where it's lagging or the hardware just not doing stuff that you can care less about it doing. It just works and dependable. And that is why, well, it sticks around and the phone that remains in a number of hardcore Android fans' pockets to this day. Anyway, I'm out.